Hello and welcome to the Scoutcast ahead of Gameweek 10 as our struggle to predict the unpredictable continues. My name is Joe.
My name is Neil.
My name is Karam.
Welcome everyone, welcome Neil, welcome Karam as we look ahead to the weekend's matches that have just passed, the weekend's matches that are coming up, and of course the Friday deadline this week, and of course beyond. We always looking ahead and looking to steal a march on the template, but more on the template later. Neil, what's coming up in the show?
Yeah, well, we're going to focus on someone who was very popular last year. So Raul Jimenez from Wolves is now the time to renew our interest in him, especially with Pukki failing at the moment. Man City rotation, that's rearing its head again. We've seen the lineup tonight. We'll discuss that in a second. And we're going to go in search of the missing FPL template. Is the current one failing us? Is there another one out there that we haven't discovered yet? And we're going to be discussing that. And there's also something I'm not going to afford to get my teeth into is Joe's differential.
Yes.
Clean sheets, community questions, and our Gameweek 9 plans, as well as some very roughs with some slightly smoother.
Yes, so sorry, I should have. That's my fault in the notes. I should have put Gameweek 10 plans, of course, but it's Gameweek 9 recap. So we'll be as quick as we can because it was an awful game week. So I'm going to go first. Surprisingly, I was the highest, but it's not by much. So yeah, here's what I got. 36. It was just average or just 1 point below average. So an average score in an awful game week. So that's okay. So small red arrow for me. I'm still around the 100k. Hardly anything that happened in my team apart from a Sterling assist until my Henderson pick and Lundstram off the bench saw me get that Sheffield United double clean sheet, which was a surprise, but a nice one. To be honest, it felt pretty good. And it felt like I'd won FPL. It was really exciting. I'm that kind of manager. It was that kind of week where a double Sheffield United clean sheet is just the most exciting thing that's happened all season. But it's like one of those moments in FPL. Like you remember back when Sessegnon got a goal in the last minute of a double game week, and lots of people had captained him. Lampard's 4 goals. He was my vice captain that week, and Drogba didn't turn up, my captain. There we go. See, these are great moments I remember over the years, and I will always remember Lundstram coming off the bench, but joining Henderson as well. Yeah, great. 2 frees up next. Onwards and upwards, hopefully. Neil, you're in second, 33, and like me, another Abraham captainer. Oh, I just should mention, because people will point out the really bad bit of my team. I've got Rico still on my bench. But yeah, anyway, Neil, 33, another Abraham captainer, another Lundstram bench person. What were your highs and lows?
A lot of lows, really. I mean, Chris Wood, I suppose, is the one standout name of my team from this weekend. I think a lot of people got Lundstram off the bench. A lot of people got Sterling's sort of 5 points was a relative success story. I think the top 10 captains, he was the highest scorer amongst them. So actually, it wasn't too bad a return that. Chris Wood, I came so close to selling him this week. I looked at Josh King, who I wasn't convinced about, but I had the fear of God put in me by everyone moving towards Wilson and King ahead of that Norwich game. I decided to stick with him. 5 points isn't great. It could have been a lot better as well, considering he had that goal ruled out for a pretty, cheap trip on Johnny Evans. He was never going to get the ball anyway.
5 points this week is amazing.
Yeah.
That's like some people's top scorer.
Yeah, and it's he's done all right for me the past few weeks. My team is excruciatingly dull. Like it's very template, but he's the one sort of differential I've got, and I think I'll keep him. We'll discuss that more going forward. But yeah, Wood and Lundstram up the obvious highs, and then a lot of lows in between. Pukki, another captain failed yet again. Soyuncu losing his clean sheet, although that was to Wood, I suppose. And I couldn't get much off Saka off the bench either. So not great, but I think I'm just content that everyone else has such a stinker as well. I mean, the average was around about that, so I haven't lost too many places. I think I'm down to about 70k or something like that. So
good week. Good week to have about. I mean, I've had
Exactly, yeah.
much worse scores than that when everyone else has got about 50 or 60 points. That's the stinker of a game week. Karam, you're not far behind, 32, but you're on a wild card as well. So it's never nice to get a score like that on your wild card. But nevertheless, there's your team. Kane captaincy, which should have in another universe paid off. But what else were your highs and lows this week on your freshly wild carded side?
Yeah, not the start I wanted, to be honest, for this game week. You spend a lot of time during the international break doing analysis, comparisons for different picks, and nothing has worked out this game week. And it turned out that not only my picks, pretty much all premium popular picks, all blanked. I think the team is in good shape for the next few weeks, so I will not panic now. It's a red arrow from 95k to 144k, so it's still top 2%, which is I'm happy about at this stage of the season. I think that the new structure of the team is as I want, having a spot for a premium forward, moving out the funds from the defense to midfield and the attack. So we hope that game week 10 will be much better. If I have a couple of regrets, I cannot call it regrets after 1 week, but I think that I did not give Lundstrom what he really deserves. I genuinely thought that he could be a third defender with TA and one of Soyuncu and Tomori. But then I fancied the Chelsea, Leicester and Burnley fixtures from a defensive point of view. And then Lundstrom ended up as a fifth defender. And now I'll be having a bench headache every week to start.
Isn't that it's almost like the curse of the wild cards, because your 15's actually too good, so you haven't got anyone you think, I'm quite happy to see them on the bench. They're all kind of like quite good. Luckily my team's much worse than that, so I'm not going to have that headache any longer. And soon yours won't as well, because as the wild card slowly disappears in the mists of time.
Indeed.
Let's move on to rough with the smooth. Quickly, rough, that's everyone. That's just everyone's team. There we go. But except a few people here. So I'm going to mention Bobberall. He got Rico off the bench. A manager has no name. And Brahmaran got Rico and Lundstrom off the bench as well. So going one step further. And here we go. Here's another one I noticed. It's the world number one. The guy who's top of the tree, he is Nick Tanner. He got 46 points, which this week is a great score, and he had the good sense to start Rico and Lundstrom. This is why he is number one, because he's just looked at those players and said, I'll have them, or he's made them at least first sub. So he's recognised that. He's got quite a templated team, but there are some differences there, and so I just thought I'd put him up because sometimes it's quite good to see who's top and where they're going. But I think the key difference is he's got faith in those cheap players already. It's not taking him several weeks like us lot really. And Lundstrom is right there. Rico straight in. He's got a nice. I think that Kane may go for him, but you never know. It's an intriguing differential, and of course he's got Mane there, and I think Mane might be helping him slightly. Certainly, been a bit more reliable than Salah recently, but time will tell with that. Let's move on to the community questions, and we look at each week we look at the player, the team, and a talking point as well. So I'm taking the turn of looking at the player this week. It's Jiminez. He's been touted as Pookie, and so Pookie has been touted as the new Jiminez. I'll get it the right way around. Pookie's the new Jiminez. But who is the new Jimenez now? Is Jimenez the new Jimenez? Remember Jimenez from last season? Is he the new Jimenez? Well, anyway, let's go.
The one we all love.
Yeah, so it's all quite confusing. There he is, doing well, doing very well. 2 assists and a goal in the last couple of matches. And it brings us back nicely to our crystal ball gazing last week. So and then I was talking about Wolves being of greater interest over the coming weeks, I think, because of the form and fixtures. And that's just stepped up a gear this week, I think. Lots in the community, including myself, are considering getting Jimenez in with Pookie, the old Jimenez or the new Jimenez, whichever, making way. We only have one question on this, and this was before we booked Karam to be on. It's from Karam, Scoutcast guest Karam, I wrote here. So it was before I knew you were going to be on. So this is you, and you said, shall we invest in Wolves with just one top 6 side until game week 16? And Jimenez, as you remind us, 1 goal and 2 assists in the last 2 game weeks, looking a great option, even with Europa League commitments. And Andy Nash was among others in the community, just wanting us to chat about Jimenez in general. So I'm going to go straight to you, Cam. You asked the question, can you deliver the answer? Jimenez, interested?
Well, I'll try my best to answer to Karam myself. Yeah, I'm very interested in Jimenez. Who wouldn't be interested in Jimenez? I think I'm personally very tempted by him, and I think that himself and Wolves start to find their feet again. They had a slow start of the season with the Europa League, a new challenge for them. They start to play midweek, so it was hard to manage that fitness-wise and mentality and on these things. Now I can see them managing that to some extent, especially they have a new signings, especially the attack. Jimenez started every Premier League game so far, and the fixtures look really good. If you look ahead, Jimenez will face Newcastle, Arsenal, Aston Villa, Bournemouth, Sheffield, and West Ham. And for me, when I pick an asset, I don't only look at the underlying statistics of the individual pick, but also the opposition stats to get the full picture. So I've pulled out some stats about Jimenez. I will start with the worrying part because now he's not in the top 15 forwards in terms of shots on target and big chances. However, the caveat to that Wolves faced really good defensive sides beginning of the season. We talk about Leicester, Man United, Chelsea, Crystal Palace. So you can really balance that out to some extent. So I personally predict and I expect to see more from Jimenez in the next run of fixtures. And this is the good side when I looked at the oppositions that Jimenez will face. When I compared the team, I looked at only home or away stats. Depends on the team that they are facing. So for example, Wolves will travel to Newcastle. So I looked at the Newcastle stats at home only, just to sometimes teams get really different home versus away. So for the first 8 game weeks, Newcastle conceded 2 goals, but that's the 3rd best. And that's why I'm a bit on hold to get Jimenez this week, probably the week after. Arsenal is next, conceded 5 goals. That's 12th in the league. If you look at the XG conceded to see how lucky or unlucky they were, they are 13th. So they conceded what they have to concede, basically. Aston Villa conceded 8 goals. That's 15th. But the XG conceded is 20th. So Bournemouth, 7 goals conceded, 14th. So basically, apart from Newcastle, Jimenez have 3 fixtures in a row where he faces bottom half Premier League teams in terms of defensive statistics. So that really suggests that he can score in all of these games. And he's probably, for me, he's not probably coming in this weekend because I have a planned transfer with Kane. But if I don't have this issue, he would certainly be in my team from game week 11 at least versus Arsenal. So that's my thought on Jimenez. I really like him.
Yeah, so interested, but maybe hold it off for a week.
One more week.
Neil, what do you think? You interested in Jimenez?
Yeah, he's on the radar. I think there's I am still sticking with Pookie for now. I think he's the obvious swap. Obviously, I've got to watch the prices, and I don't want to be priced out of that move. But yeah, I think as Karam said there, for all the concern about rotation around Wolves assets, he's one of the ever-presents this season. There's only 3 of them. And Woody Body would have been the other one if he hadn't been suspended. I think it's less about his game time and more about the players around him. So how much that rotation, how much that fatigue from Thursday night affects the other Wolves players around him, and how much it affects him. So even if he was on the pitch, I mean, he was I was going to say he was flagging towards the end of the last, before the last international break, but then he goes and delivers 2 assists for his City. But he has been flogged by Santo. I mean, he's been playing a lot in Europe as well. So that is a concern at the moment. However, having seen the game back, I watched it back after the event, and he looked fresh as a daisy on Saturday. He had that 2-week breather for Mexico. He wasn't involved with his country, and he looked great. I think the thing is, as I mentioned in this Scout Notes article this morning, Wolves are generally better against the bigger team. So on Saturday, they only had 4 shots against Southampton. That was the entire team. That wasn't just Jimenez.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of creativity in those games, or rather, opposition stymieing their creativity is a bit of a problem sometimes. Now, of course, those stats don't include the 2 goals he had disallowed, so got to factor that in. I'm interested. I think I've still to be fully convinced just yet. I think I'll see how he does against Newcastle, against a team who are going to sit back and defend a little bit more.
I wonder, because if Newcastle's defence could be considered a better team at home than they are. Yeah. I mean, they're awful away, Newcastle, but at home, quite tough. So that could be considered a tough game for Wolves.
Yeah, I think I had a look the other day, and I think St James's Park's seen the least number of goals this season in terms of home and away goals. There just hasn't been that many scored. But having said that, I've just had a look at this is our flat track bully tool on the members area. I've just checked how Jimenez got on last season against Arsenal, Bournemouth, and Newcastle. They were the 3 of the 4 fixtures they got next. The other one's a promoted team, and he had the most shots out of any player amongst FPL forwards. So possibly more against Arsenal and Bournemouth, but. I think I'll hold this weekend, see how he does against Newcastle, and then possibly look at him for Gameweek 11 onwards.
Well, I've got itchy feet, so I'm just going to go straight in. I was dancing on my own at the Pookie party last week, and it was a very depressing party. I was basically just sitting on the stairs or in the kitchen crying on my own, and I've had enough of it. So for me, I prefer Jimenez going forwards. I just think it's one of those classic decisions in FPL, which we will talk about a bit later, which is, do I remove a poor performing, well-owned asset for a stronger performing differential? And I think in this case, the answer for me is yes. I need a tiny bit more, but I've got 2 frees, so I can just chip away at someone. Maybe Campbell, maybe Otamendi. Let's have a look. But so he's got the form, 2 assists and a goal in his last 2 game weeks. His underlying stats show he is playing better. So I had a look at the first 7 game weeks compared to the last 2 game weeks. So he's had returns in those 2 game weeks. Let's see how he's been doing, like in general as a player, really. And guess what? He's much better. So the first 7 game weeks, compared to the last 2, the baseline bonus is up. That's basically the bonus points you get for just turning up and doing stuff. Getting dispossessed. He's getting dispossessed less. He's taking on players more successfully, and he's getting more penalty area touches. He's getting more big chances. So small sample because it's the last 2 game weeks, but I was looking at, why is he doing better last 2 game weeks? What's going on the pitch with him? I had to do the match of the day challenge this week, so reduced to just highlights for watching Wolves. But even from the highlights, he looked good. And Jimenez is looking good in a similar way that Jamie Vardy looks good, and the stats, if you're looking at the last 4 game weeks or the season in general, the stats aren't going to show that Jimenez is good. But if you compare how he's been doing the last couple of game weeks, or as Neale and Karam have done, looking at an isolated how are they against certain opposition, I think that really tells a bit of a tale there. So for me, I think it's an opportunity to dive straight in to Jimenez. And the other thing, 9.7% ownership currently. I like that.
Yep, and he's on penalties when Neves is not on the pitch as well, so that's another plus to his.
It's something now. Yeah. I'm as a veteran of the Scoutcast, back in the days when it was Mark and Granville, and then I joined them. But there was something that Mark has done consistently over the years, and it's something that I'm giving a go this year as a sort of a new tactic for me. And he was very good, and I'm not saying I'm very good at this, but he was very good at predicting what the new template will be. It chimes in a lot with our talking point at the end of the show, but I'm attempting it. Not with a great success so far. What he used to do is you get a player in, everyone going, why are you getting that player in? and then they would blank the next week, and the next week they get double digits, and then they get double digits, and then you get, that's why I got that player in. So I'm attempting that, I think, with Jimenez. I think it's one of those, I don't know if he's going to get a good score against Newcastle, but I think he will in the weeks ahead, especially with those fixtures. Yeah, let's give it. I'm going to try a mark tactic there in honour of the original Scoutcast host. So yeah, I think that's anything else to add about Jimenez?
Yeah, I think we'll start showing a bit more form about 4 game weeks ago when they got a draw at Palace. Now this is the tedious tactical stuff. When they started to play this 3-4-3 instead of a 3-5-2, so which allows room for both Traore and Doherty to play in the same team. There's a lot more threat down that right flank. Now, of course, they got a lot of joy last season playing in that 3-5-2 with Hotler and Jimenez up front, and that was the formation they did use at Etihad. But that's maybe a better time to use that. If he does start using his 3-4-3 and they start attacking a bit more, perhaps at the expense of the defence, then I'll be watching that to see how the sort of stats add up. But they have looked better. They've kind of gone full circle because they abandoned that system early in last season, around about this time last season. And they have looked better playing this 3-4-3 of late. So, I'll be watching that.
Yeah, okay. So, a few mixed views there on Jimenez, but general interest, varying degrees of quite interested to, very interested. Let's move on to the team. Luckily, Karam is a Man City fan. Luckily, we've got Man City on the bill. Karam, do you want to explain why we're talking about Man City again?
Yeah, of course. So, we've got new updates in the last few days or weeks, which we decided to have another look and revisit Man City. We've got more confirmation that Gabriel Jesus and Aguero will be potentially more rotated. Mendy is back, which is great potentially for Sterling, and it makes him more potent in theory. Otamendi doesn't look good these days with injuries, with absences, with some new changes, tactical things from Guardiola that he decided to play defensive central midfielders as centre backs for quicker build-up. KDB injured, but then he's back again and he's looking much better than ever. So we've got questions about them. Kasper Schwa and The Fish both asked, is Man City attacking triple up idea still viable, especially given the threat of rotation? Someone knows, one of us maybe, is a Twitter account.
It's someone's name.
Someone's name. What to do with Otamendi? Keep, sell. And KTK and Teresta, is Sterling simply not delivering enough for his price? And Shiva Destroyer asks, is Pep making City assets uncaptainable? So I'll go back, Joe, and what do you think of Man City?
Still love them, even though they're letting me down so harshly. KDB is still KDB. I do urge people to have a look at the captain video that myself and Neil did earlier today. It's still on YouTube and podcast floating around there in the ether as well. Do have a listen or watch it. In that, one of the key things I noticed there, that KDB's home scores this season are 11, 13 and 17. So immediately I want to captain him when he's at home, because that is a great set of returns. Sterling 6-3 and 2, Aguero 6-16, 9 and 2. So there's patchy at home, not as very good to bit of a blank there. Sterling intrigues me, and I think this is one of the new things that happened. So it's the possibility. I was looking at the possibility of moving him on actually soon for Mane or Salah, and I still don't rule that out soon. But the eye test tells me I think he's getting more chances with Mendy on the pitch to provide that width. Karam might know a bit more about that as a Man City fan. So with Sterling, I looked at how his Palace performance compared to the previous game weeks. So let's have a look here. Sterling comparison tool. So you can see from the heat map there that the red on his heat map, the little dots there for the most recent games, is against Palace is in the penalty box, which is where you want him. Whereas previously he's a little bit in the penalty box, but very much to the side of it, but very much outside the penalty box, providing that width. So I like the Palace performance. It's a very small group of matches of one to look at, but his XG was up, so his expected goals were up, his baseline bonus is up, his crossing was down, so that indicates he's on the width, he's not on the wing as much. His chances created, though, was up because his through balls were up. So he's in those positions where he's a bit more where I want him to be in the penalty box, not right on the edge. And that indicates, I guess, what we're already seeing. If you watch the matches or listen to the matches, we're already seeing that it looked like he was allowed to come in more. And the heat map, I think, shows a bit of that. It's a trend I'm looking at. And it's a trend that I think could indicate that Sterling could be in for a haul soon in the Premier League, I hope. Otamendi, I think, is fine to keep. I think if you've got Rico or Lundstram as bench players, as I do, I'm fine. I'm fine fielding Otamendi. He's up against Villa and Southampton next. I think there's 2 clean sheet possibilities there. And if he doesn't show up, he's a kind of player that they're not gonna bring him on. It's not like he's not like, we need that attacking change. It's very rare they're going to bring in that centre back, I believe. So I just think, well, I've got Rico and Lundstram ready and waiting to come in front of him. So he's not a priority to get rid of. But I am interested in a Bolly of Wolves as a possible replacement. So I'll leave it there. So yeah, I don't know what you think of that, Karam.
Yeah, I think for Otamendi, let's get his story out of the way. I think now he's fit for the bench in the Champions League, so that suggests that he can potentially play minutes against Southampton. I think Pep Guardiola, with his defenders, if the asset starts, then he will not. If Otamendi starts, then here it is. If he does not, then he will not get him on the bench at some point. He used to make substitution with strikers and midfielders. So I think it's an easy keep. I would say great home against Southampton. You don't really want to sell and then you find out that he starts and keep a clean sheet. That would not look too cool. With regards to the midfielders and the attacks, I'm personally in the triple up next weekend, and that's an early reveal to my transfer. Aguero, Kane to Aguero. It's on, bar any injuries in Champions League. And I want to max out on these 2 home fixtures, and I will speak more about why Aguero, why Sterling. But let's go back to Neale and get his thoughts about Man City, and then I'll go back to comment on that.
Yeah, I can just echo a lot of what you've said there. I think the question's probably come 2 weeks early for me because I think the decision will be made ahead of Game Week 12, which is when they play Liverpool away. I think for now, double header against Aston Villa and Southampton. Even if you just get 1 start, which you'll definitely get 1 start, I think, from whoever you have, Sterling, Aguero, De Bruyne. It'll be at least 1, possibly 2 if you're lucky. Then there's plenty of damage to be done in any of those fixtures. I think that Wolves game was a slight worry, of course, but that was like the first time they hadn't scored at the Etihad since, I don't know when. I think it was a season before. Yeah, season before last, wasn't it? The Huddersfield game when they'd only won the league. So I think I answered a similar question last week in the FPL question time thing we did, and I just cited the example of last season when Sterling went through a similar period. I think it was game weeks 15 to 22. He didn't score more than 6 points in a single game week, similar to what he's doing now, and he still ended up, I think it was second highest scorer. He's history for me. I know you've got to judge every case on what they're doing now. I think he's earned the right for me to come out of this little funk. Rotation hasn't really been as much of an issue for him. I think he's only been benched once, didn't get on. That was and I mentioned this, if he had played in that game, which was the Watford game, who knows what he might have scored, and he might have been up there with Aguero and De Bruyne, who are, despite the fact that between them, they missed 5 games, is that right? Out of the starting 11. They're still first and second for points. So
Sterling in the league, from my memory, whenever I've had Sterling in FPL, he doesn't. If he's benched, he stays there. He doesn't tend to come on. Is that your interpretation of it too?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, this is just off the top of my head. I'll have to look into that. But I do seem to remember that quite a bit over the years. If he wants to give him a rest, he's going to give him a rest. I think providing they're not chasing a deficit.
Yeah.
If they're like 7-0 up or something like that, he's not going to bring them on.
No.
I've got Sterling and De Bruyne, full disclosure, and I'll keep them, both of them, along with Otamendi for the next 2, and then I'll probably reassess thereafter. It might just be a case of holding on to one of those players. But the regardless of the faults this season, I think defensively, Otamendi is expendable after that. They're still top of any pretty much attacking statistic that you want to mention. Big chances, shots in the box, goals scored, if you want to keep it basic.
Yeah.
So I think I'm willing to take the risk, certainly the next two, and then we'll see after that.
Yeah, very wise. Well, like I mentioned, I'm really in the triple up for the next 2 game weeks, like you said, Neil. For me, when I looked at Man City number of goals, average number of goals per game, per home game. So this season, I would start with 2018-19 season. They averaged 3 goals per home game and 2 goals per away game. So they are much stronger at home than away. This season, they averaged 3.5 goals per home game. It's 4 game weeks at home, 8-0 against Watford, no goals against Wolves. So that can cancel things out. The clear message, they have been the same or even a bit better. So that's why I don't want to max out on the party, I would say. And it's actually a ticket. That's how I look at this. It's a ticket. You get Aguero or Sterling, and then Pep will decide whether it's valid or invalid on the bench. Now, recently, I listened to Pep press conferences, whether after the Premier League or ahead of the Champions League, and he was asked a couple of times about Jesus versus Aguero, and he praised both of them. And many times he emphasized the importance of Aguero. And the only reason that he did not start Palace game is that he was not fully fit or did not train for a week during the international break due to some minor injury, maybe, as Scaloni mentioned during the Argentinian duties. So otherwise, I would have expected Aguero to start, and now he plays the Champions League game. For me, Aguero, here is a stat. The last time Aguero did not start a home Premier League game was the double game week 32 against Cardiff, and that's because of one injury. And the last time Aguero did not start a home Premier League game without an injury concern was game week 22 against Wolves. That's the 13th of January. And so I can read into this that Aguero is a different animal at Etihad. He's really necessary for home games. And he was not much involved in the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. So that tells, and they have a cup game midweek between Aston Villa and Southampton. So I'll try for once to second guess Guardiola and say that Jesus will play the cup and Aguero will get the 2 home games potentially. Now KDB is a given for me. If you don't have KDB, get KDB or at least consider him.
Bob, rob, borrow, or sell, whatever it takes. Commit crimes, get him.
Exactly. His price is still criminal at 10 million, and I think that's why his price did not drop, because he's still underpriced, I think, for what he has delivered or will deliver. Sterling is a bit of an issue, to be honest. And 2 games with England, now 2 games in a row, Premier League and Champions League. We've seen that Bernardo Silva was used in the left flank in few occasions, so I would be a bit content on the start of a Sterling next weekend, but you never know with these options. So I've got another stat about Sterling and Mendy, and I quote it from Adam Hopcroft. He shared it on Twitter early today. Sterling and Mendy started together 12 times in the Premier League. Sterling got 10 goals, 4 assists, and blanked only 3 times. So whether the Mendy effect is a real thing or it's a thing.
Really? This is a new theory. The Otamendi Sterling goal theory.
Indeed, but it seems to be working somehow, or there's a pattern in there. So I really hope that Mendy's fitness helped him to start week in, week out. Then I would be more encouraged to keep Sterling after the Liverpool game. But certainly the next 2 would be I would keep them personally. So. Yeah. That's
okay. Well, I mean, some of what we've been talking about there about Man City, and some of what we've been talking about the end of the Pookie party last week and the emergence of the Jimenez party, if he does party. But it's all looking at the template, really. It's looking at ownership. It's looking at players that are getting in, emerging players. But anyway, Neil, can you please explain some more? What is the talking point about this week?
Yeah, it's just that. It's what has happened to the FPL template. So we're going to run down the template as we see it in a second. But has it gone missing? Is it there but we can't see it? Why is a firing template of heavy hitter so important? And why are we so lost without a nice, easy, predictable template? Are we all just dullards at heart and we just all want to be told what team to pick? But yeah, here's the question that prompted it. It's from Out of Position. He said, is there, for a change, no template at all this season? Or is there a new template forming which no one is currently able to clearly visualize? So, yeah, Joe, you were talking about Mark's ability, his psychic ability.
He can visualize the next template, yeah.
Yeah. What happened to him? Someone should try and hire him for fantasy football.
You should do. But that was his special power.
Yeah.
So, his if he was playing top trump superheroes, that would be his special power there. 10 out of 10.
Yeah. We might as well go to you, Joe, first. Okay. You can shed some light on it. Who you think perhaps is going to form the new template, or who you think of the current template are expendable?
So for me, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, where's the template and what are the templates under?" So basically, the template is just always there, but it's always changing. That doesn't change this year, last year, whatever year, and it does make it look invisible sometimes, and we feel a bit lost. When those on it don't really perform so well. So the solution, and this, I hate myself for writing this down because it sounded too simple, really. It sounded like it's almost like patronising, but I'm just going to read it anyway because sometimes simple works, sometimes, hopefully. So the solution really is to look at the template, look at the high-owned players, who's performing well, who isn't, and if they're not performing well, get them out for differentials that you think will perform better. That sounds really simple. That's basically how you do well in FPL. Obviously, that's the theory and trying to get it right at the moment. But it's a nice exercise to do, I think, when you look at the template and look at your own thoughts of differentials that could potentially score more. So looking at who are the duds and the potential replacements. So let's look at the top owned players. Let's go for the template being the top owned players. And it's broadly similar to those in the top 10,000s as well. So Ederson and Button is the goalkeeper combo of choice. Van Dijk, Luca Dean, Alexander-Arnold, Kelly and Lundstram are the top defenders there. So there's that mix of very cheap and very expensive. Abraham, Pukki and Aubameyang or Aguero up top, and in midfield Sterling, Mount, KDB, Salah or Mane, and Cantwell is the either fourth midfielder or the fifth midfielder guy on the bench for many there. So I'm looking at that and I think in terms of what is the template, what we hope will be the new template is I think keep a Liverpool defender, just forget about ownership with them, just they're good, keep them. Keep, if you've got one of TAA or Robertson or even both, get them. Keep Lundstram, absolute gold. FPL just misclassified him and made him cheap. Brilliant. So we can dip into that as someone that you touted back in July. So I emerged from my hospital bed to go on to a podcast with Neale to tell me about this guy Lundstram I'd never heard of. And we're all talking about him now. I would say keep one of or both of Mount and Abraham. I think they're good. Keep KDB and Sterling. So this is, I think, keep a lot of the template. It's fine. Keep one of Salah or Mane. Ditch those goalkeepers though. Ditch Cantwell as well, especially if he's your fourth midfielder. He's basically blocking, I think, the likes of Lundstram and Rico. As I found out this week, Rico on my bench, who's he blocked by? He's blocked by Cantwell, who I was tempted to put far higher up. Move Cantwell back, move him away from your team. Ditch Pukki as well. So replacements in goal. Henderson at Sheffield United. We saw he kept Arsenal at bay. Some great saves there. He was only denied an extra bonus because he got booked for time wasting, I believe. And I thought I was going to get a bonus point there from him, but sadly not. Patricio is the top. These are players. These are top on form as well in FPL at the moment. So Henderson and Patricio, Wolves, 12% owned. They're the form goalkeepers. Look at them. Don't look at Ederson and Button. Defenders, Bolly I've mentioned, is only 6.4% owned, but 2 clean sheets and bonus in his last 3 matches. We're all ignoring him for some reason, but he's much better than some of the template that we have got. In midfield, Jack Grealish has just appeared. Everyone's talking about McGinn, talking about Mount in that bracket. What about Jack Grealish? 4% owned, 28 points in his last 4 matches. I think that's going to continue. I've seen him in the flesh play at, admittedly against lowly Yeovil. He's a good player. He's just a really good player, and now he's playing in an much more attacking role. In attack, Pookie dump. Poorly performing. Was it 5 blanks in the last 6? Jimenez, Vardy, Josh King. I'm tentatively saying Danny Ings, but I just don't think he's going to be fit enough. Connolly and Wesley, they are the ones in terms of form to look at, and of those I think Vardy and Jimenez are the ones to rise to the rankings. So Jimenez 9% ownership, Vardy 13% ownership, and I think they've got strong returns most weeks in them. So there we go, simple. We've FPL completed, we've done it, we can move on to another game. That's how you do it, but that's the theory anyway. Yeah, back to you, Neil.
Yeah. Should we just say goodnight, everybody? We've sorted it. That's the clue to winning FPL. Karam, what do you think? Who do you think of the template names that Joe's listed there are dispensable, and who, or do you even think there is a template? There's just so much variety out there now that that's why people are struggling, perhaps because it is hard to have the conviction to go with players who aren't widely owned. You look at perhaps at I know I count myself amongst them. Really, I've got to where I am by probably second guessing some form, and now I'm terrified to move from it because that's where everybody else is. They've got the same team as me. So what do you think? What's the next bandwagon? Who's the next template? Do you think there is a template, or is it all just a free for all?
Well, I think the reason we are speaking about this topic today is largely because of the disappointment probably from the heavy hitters. I thought that they let us down many times this season. I captained Salah and Sterling most of the previous game weeks, and I did not really manage any of them with a good score. I can only think of Aubameyang, who was consistent over the previous 8 game weeks, and now 2 blanks in a row. And just to add a comment on that, if you look at some heavy hitters and see how many times they have a blank in X number of game weeks. So you've got Salah, 3 blanks in the last 4 game weeks. Even Tammy Abraham, who provided great value for money in the beginning of the season, 3 blanks in the last 4 game weeks. Sadio Mane, 3 blanks in the last 4 game weeks. Pookie 5 times in the last 6 game weeks. So there is some inconsistency, especially in the heavy hitters. So the Sterling 4 blanks in the last 6 game weeks. And at the same time, the budget options proved some great value for money. But again, we've seen some of them like Tammy, they are not consistent enough to deliver week in, week out, which is understandable given the price maybe, or whatever the reason is. So are they really captain options, for example? Now, I think something you will touch on it, Neil, later is about the premium defense as well. We started big at the back, and then we took out money to midfield. We went to budget strikers, and then they started to blank. So I think the chaos, probably if I can call it, from the heavy hitters and the budgets, the popular options, put us or caused that panic that we are in right now. And some managers, I think, started to try and opt for new options, new picks, even unpopular ones or unproven ones, different strategies, formations, or some punts. And that, I think, caused the variety of formations and strategies that we are having right now. And that's why I don't think that we have now player template as such, but more of the structure template. So now probably the theory of the defense is one of TA and Robertson and bunch of cheapies for 4.5 or mega cheap, like Rico and Kylian Lundstrom. The budget forwards, for example, Pookie, move it to Jimenez now, Vardy as a 9 million figure. In terms of template, previously when I was on the Scoutcast a few weeks ago, we touched on the shift to new picks, I would say. So the start was great for Man City and Liverpool. Now we have Leicester, Arsenal, Wolves, and these teams, and Chelsea, and these teams have many options that provided good value, and they are in good price. So we have now bigger pool of players to pick from. Some will opt for Pookie, or some will opt for Jimenez, or one would go a little bit bigger to Firmino or Vardy. So that's why I think that we are in a transition period, to sum up things, to define what is really the new template based on form, like Joe mentioned, based on the fixtures. Some players, they have good fixtures but poor form, and vice versa. So it made it really hard to predict that. So yeah, that's how I think about it.
Yeah, Neil.
Yeah. Sorry, Joe. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was going to say. I mean, I think it's particularly frustrating at the moment because of those premiums, as Karam said. They're blanking too often at the moment, and there's been some stats going around that apparently the last week and the last couple of weeks have been like really low scoring. It's been like some of the lowest scores they've had in FPL for years in terms of the average score there, and the highest score as well, and the scores for the dream team that they have every week. And I think can cloud the issue because, I think over the years premiums often do blank, and that's playing the game really, trying to work. I remember Gareth Bale swerving his hauls, ridiculously amount of times, and similar can happen with Sterling and Aguero and Salah. But I just thought it just chimed there because referring to Pookie and Abraham as heavy hitters, and they have been really in terms of those double-digit hauls, and I just found it interesting that they are in the template, and they're also thought of heavy hitters as well. But no, I just thought I'd put that in there because it's something that's familiar, but it does seem a little different this year because, as Karam said, there's more choice. So we've now got cheaper players in that premium bracket, not just Vardy and Mahrez when they win the Premier League.
Yeah, we sort of talk it as if it's a bad thing, but I think it's great for the game, really. That's what you want.
Exactly.
Yeah, you want people who are round about the 2 million mark who can see a way back for themselves to still, gain a top 50k, top 10k finish. FPL is at its most boring when there is a template team, and when you get to around maybe the game week 23 mark, and then there's nothing much changing, and people are relying on the carnage of a double game week or a blank game week to get themselves back up. But by that point, sometimes it's too late. So I think I'm all for it, really. As much as it scares me, about the prospect of me missing out on someone who I haven't got. But I think long may it continue. I think in terms of who I can see become more popular, obviously I'm no soothsayer, but I'm no Mark. I am, as Karam said there, I do wonder. FPL's cyclical, isn't it, in terms of trends and fads? And just as soon as we've got over the fact that we're not playing 5 at the back, then who knows what could be around the corner. I mean, last season there was a similar slow start in terms of clean sheets. Not as slow as this time. I think this season it's been the fact that the big teams haven't kept as many. I think this time last year, Liverpool, Man City had already kept 6. Liverpool's kept 2 this time around. But for example, Liverpool being the team of note. Now, after game week 12, they've got some really good fixtures, and I'm possibly thinking of doubling up on Alexander Arnold and Robertson. Now, that's still to be confirmed. I need to look more into it, but the fact that they are, let me see where they are in the overall standings, total points. They are joint second and fourth, despite the fact that they've barely kept any clean sheets. So they're doing it all on their attacking returns. Now, that is going to change sooner rather than later. So I want to be there. You're talking about trying to beat the curve and be ahead of the trends. I want to be there when they start keeping clean sheets. So hopefully they can just tick by the next few game weeks, conceding 1 goal. Yeah. And then start to stiffen up at the back. Alisson's back now as well. That's something that should be said. He gives them more confidence at the back. So that's where I'm looking possibly from game week 13. There's others in there as well. Who's to say that Man United can go on a run of keeping clean sheets? They're defensively much better than they are in attack. They look quite good against Liverpool from a defensive point of view. Solskjaer was talking about that wing-back system. Now, they've got some good fixtures coming up. Who's to say that Maguire couldn't start putting away some of those chances and keep clean sheets along the way? You've got Southampton fixture swing around the corner, game week 14. I might be looking at Ings for that. So there are definite threats to the template as may be now. The fact that there isn't as strong a template as there is normally is a good thing, as I say. And I think there's we're only a quarter way through the season. There's still so much to develop, so much to come out of the forthcoming fixture swings. Sorry, Joya.
I was just gonna. I think as well, when people get in situations like this each season, we all do. There's a tendency to think, I'll get rid of the current template completely and just have all differentials. That's, I think, a mistake, because looking at the current template, there's still some really good players in there, and it sounds like the new template will be a mixture of those, but add in some of the things we've been talking about there. So as Karam was looking at those premiums strikers. Well, obviously looking at Aguero, who by the way has just scored a brace on international duty this week, so try and leave him out at home. And as Neil's talking about, and we talked about last week as well, that double Liverpool defence I think is a great kind of differential sword, because everyone's going to get those clean sheet points from Alexander-Arnold and Robertson and an assist. Imagine getting it twice. Brilliant. So each week you're getting maybe 8 to 10 points above all your rivals there. I think that's great. And for me, they're looking at some of the Wolves assets there. Even in defence, look at Patricio and Bolly. I think are really overlooked steady scorers. Jimenez we've obviously spoken about there. But yeah, so Neil, do you want to add anything else?
Yeah, I think that, as you say there, it's a mix in patience with aggression, isn't it? Because there are players there who are proven performers who will reward patience, I think. So yes, Mane might outscore Salah over the course of the season. They might return a couple of more points. It's not going to be much in it. But these type of players, I've been burned very badly before by offloading them. I think back to Salah last season when I got rid of him on my wild card and he goes and scores a hat-trick. So those type of players reward long-term patience. The likes of Pukki and Barnes are streaky players, and they have been, but in Barnes' case, they have been for a while. I think back to Mitrovic last season, is similar parallels with Pukki. Both brilliant for underlying stats, season long, really. Mitrovic was right up there, even at the end of the season. But can Pukki sustain that level of goal scoring output as someone like Aguero can or Aubameyang can? Probably not. So I think you might have to roll with the trends in terms of those mid-price options. Occasionally you've got to get a Jimenez who's a season keeper, but more often than not, you've got to try and preempt when they are going to run out of form, and that does happen, which is why I got in Wood instead of Barnes, because there wasn't much in it, and lo and behold, that's what's happened. So
he's the unfashionable postman, isn't he? He's he's just a postman. He arrives in a Frankie Says Relax t-shirt and a pair of flares, but always delivers. There he is, and that's what Wood is. No one's ever going to go for him except you, but he always delivers.
Got one more comment. Yeah, got one more comment on that. I think the way the season is going now, I think previously we were looking at assets from 4 to 6 game weeks, and I think the game is a bit slow to reward, especially the heavy hitters. They are not coming by the players in a night. So I think the way it's going, it's gonna reward the managers over a longer period, maybe 10 game weeks or 12 game weeks. It will take blanks, but it will take big holes as well.
Okay.
And if you look at the source of the points, I think personally, until now, Liverpool and Man City are the biggest source of points. So especially those teams, two teams, if you jump early on or you run out of patience with the assets of these two teams, you might be punished heavier than any other. And like Neil mentioned, the Pukki, the Barnes and Wood, they will not last week in, week out. So those are the players that you can bring them short to mid-term, I would say. But just pick one of the Salah and Mane, Sterling or Aguero, just one of them. And in the last 2 years, we've seen there's no much of difference points-wise. And the price-wise is the same this season. So it makes the life a bit easier. So I think you've reached some patience with the...
Okay, well, look, I think we can all agree we've solved FPL. It's done. It's dusted. Carry on listening if you want, but we've just completed it. Let's move on to a differential, which I'm hoping to complete this section. So, yeah, Neil, do you want to introduce this bit?
I would if I had the notes in front of me. I had minimised them. Just a second. God, now yes, okay.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you for your differential, but I've got to mention that... what a professional production this is. I've got to mention that Karam picked Nicholas Pepe recently, which...
What a pick.
Yeah, well, he did get an assist the other week, didn't he, I think? And he was a shanked effort away last night from scoring. So I contrary to you, Joe, I did think he actually had his probably his best game for Arsenal last night, which isn't saying a lot, I admit. But I thought he was better. Who knows? He'll make.
Yeah, he went from awful to just bad.
He did, yeah. Tarkowski was my pick last time I was on. I think he's just completed his 4-week cycle, hasn't he? So I think or was it last week? He got me 2 clean sheets and 3 bonus points, and then a couple of blanks. So I think that's a half success, isn't it? It's all right, yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Okay. Yeah,
and then Joe, your previous one was Sebastian Haller, is that right?
Yes.
Who did you fairly proud, I believe? I don't know. At what point did you get him in?
I got him in cunningly after his brace, but I got him in time for a goal one week, an assist another, and a couple of blanks. So yeah, it's okay. But a couple of returns there, not too bad. So yeah, my turn next, isn't it?
Yeah, go on then. Who you got this week?
Okay, so with 3 home games in the next 4 matches, Everton, Norwich, and Manchester United away, and then Leicester come and visit. So for me, I've got to pick a Brighton player, because Brighton are traditionally better at home. I think their attack. I'm not going to chicken out and go for one of their defenders. I'm going to get one of their attackers. They're so low owned, so I can take my pick really. And the differential pick I'm going for is a 0.7% owned player. I think he's going to get returns in the next set of matches there, with 3 in the next 4. It's Maupay, who I think is the Murray long-term replacement. He's there. I think Connolly is looking good as well. I do like Connolly, and I was considering picking him as well. But I think in the pecking order, he's second to Maupay. Trossard's coming back. I just think there could be some rotation there. We saw he got sacrificed when they were down to 10 men as well. I just think with his age as well, he's not going to be as he's not going to be overused, put it that way. I think he's a good differential, but for me, Maupay, last 4 game weeks has a goal, but he's messing with the big boys with his underlying stats. 12 shots in the box, 1 less than Abraham, 2 more than Aguero, and 3 more than Firmino in his last 4 game weeks. So he's doing well. I also think he'll get immediate returns. So I've written in my notes here, it's goals imminent table time. Let's get it up. There we are. There it is. And Maupay is there. He's messing with the likes of Salah, Abraham, Aguero, the ones that have been pushing the underlying stats, but not quite delivering. The table suggests they either will. There's 2 ways off this table. Like Pookie last week, he was on the table, did nothing, and now he's been removed because his underlying stats aren't showing that he should deserve to be there. Or you can be still on the table with and you can be removed on the table by simply scoring. You're scoring too many, so then you're on the other tables there, because this is under the radar, kind of who's due a goal. So I think he's going to get those immediate returns there. What are we looking at? 12 shots inside the box and just 1 goal to show from it. His expected goals, he should have had 2, so he should have had a couple of goals over that time. Which I don't think is too bad, and his expected goal involvement is a bit higher as well. So he's got those that chances in him, and the minutes per goal attempt in the box. I like this. It's under 30 minutes, so every 27.7 minutes. So lots of stats there. I think he's got the form. I think he's got the fixtures. I think he's got the underlying stats. What do you two think about him?
Karam, you go first, and while I prepare to savage Joe, you go on and see if you
rolling up your sleeves.
I was impressed by Maupay, and I watched, which game was that? Spurs, Brighton Spurs game, and he looked really good, and he was a team player all round, and he proved to be a good player for Brighton and potentially FPL asset. And I quickly looked up the stats, and you mentioned the numbers in the last 4 game weeks, but what impressed me that I compared him with all below 8 million strikers, and only Abraham, Danny Ings have managed more attempts than Maupay, 15 both, and Maupay 10. So he competes somehow with these picks, and the next 3 game weeks, I think it's gonna be a bit tough against United. Good defensive stats, but Norwich and Everton are great for Brighton and for Maupay. So I really expect him to deliver. And,
I think it's
a very nice pick.
He's not a player I would ordinarily push at this section, but I looked at those fixtures and I saw 3 scoreable or indeed winnable home games. and I thought this is my pay time. This is time to get a Brighton attacker. Not before, not after, just now. Neil, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'd love to tell you the bits because that's kind of what I'm here for. But I mean, I did put him in my scout squad a couple of weeks ago before they played Spurs because I had been impressed with his numbers, and obviously Spurs had just come off the back of that Bayern game. My probably concern for him is that he's not ruthless. He's not really clinical. I think his goal conversion is, I've got it here, 11.5% this season. Now that's way down on the likes of Vardy, the stat busters who we all love. Last season, I had a look at his stats in the Championship. Yeah, he scored 25 goals, but they were from 144 shots. So it was similar. I think his goal conversion rate was about 17%. And that was in the Championship, against inferior goalkeepers and defenders. So my slight concern is that he's not clinical enough. But for 6 million, you expect that. You expect a degree of wastefulness amongst your strikers. I've been more impressed with Brighton this season from an attacking perspective. I mean, it couldn't have been much worse than Houghton. I mean, God love him. I do love the man Houghton, but it was turgid stuff, wasn't it, at the end of last season? And I've seen Brighton a few times this season. The Newcastle game, I keep mentioning when they came up and just bossed us for like 70 minutes. Had loads of chances, Mopay especially. So I think they're going to score a lot more goals than they did last season. But I do. He's not a sort of he's not even as ruthless as someone like Ings, for example, who's similarly priced and who got Southampton's got some really good fixtures coming up. And I know this is just a 4-week punt from yourself because Brighton's fixtures are pretty bad, I would say, beyond Norwich.
But that's what I was looking at. The Manchester United is great, but then after that.
Leicester, Liverpool, Arsenal's pretty tough, and then Wolves and Palace, Sheffield United, 3 pretty good informed defensive teams. So, I can see where you're coming from, and I think next 2, I can see him bagging at least 1, maybe 2 goals. So, and that'll be enough for it to be a success, I think, in differential.
Well, it is, and that's why it's sort of now or never, really. It's not something. I might do it next week. It's just gone. This is the time to get him in. This is when he's under the radar, and this is when he could score well. And this is what this section's about. It's about the next 4 game weeks, really. Brighton attack. Do urge people to have a look at it. Connolly is a good alternative. Personally, I just think he might not get the same level of minutes. And Pascal Gross, if you've got a midfield space and you think that he will retain his starts,
he's creating a lot of chances, isn't he? I've seen,
he's in good form. Brighton are in good form, so there's a rare chance to actually recommend my team in FPL there. Neil, clean sheets I've got written down here. Do you want to? I'll just get them up on the screen.
Yes, so this is, again, based on our season ticker, where members can sort by overall fixtures, attack, defence. They can look at home and away games, look at difficulty that way. They can apply their own ratings as well to just adjust the filter. So there's lots of things you can do. Going off what we've got on the site at present, so this is the next 6, I believe, Joe, is it? The next 6 game weeks? 10 to 15. And it's Leicester who are at the top, followed by Arsenal, Chelsea, Wolves, Man United, and Newcastle, I think, after that. So, Leicester, who have one of the better underlying stats from a defensive perspective, expected goals conceded. So they are marrying that with some pretty good fixtures coming up. The likes of Southampton, Palace, Brighton, Watford, who aren't particularly clinical, I would say, at the moment. Definite you'd expect at least 2 or 3 clean sheets out of that lot. And then beneath that, probably 2 teams who haven't quite done it from a defensive perspective yet, but have shown slight signs of improvement. So Arsenal and Chelsea, Chelsea especially, whose numbers are getting better as we go, I think, by the week. So they're down there for expected goals conceded as well, despite their early season struggle. So I think there's some teams there who aren't really represented in a lot of template squads, I think. So, for example, Man United, we discussed them earlier. Wolves as well. You mentioned Bolly and Patricio. So, possible joy to be had there, I think, in the fixtures coming up.
Yeah, and the intriguing thing there, going back to that template question with Arsenal, just about their defence, if Tierney can nail down a place, I know Arsenal fans do rate him. But just looking at those amount of home fixtures, Palace, Wolves, Southampton and Brighton, all at home in the next 4 out of 6. I think that looks really good for those backing Aubameyang. Aubameyang is those with Aubameyang in their template. Keep. He's a hold definitely with those fixtures. Lacazette is an intriguing alternative. I think doesn't quite fit into my structure, but he could fit into someone else's, and I think those people could do well there. Let's move on in detail to game week 10. Just when before we go, we're going to look at teams as they stand and our plans for game week 10 and 2, including our transfers and captaincy. So, Karam, you can go first. I'll put your team up as well. So, who's in, who's out, and who are you captaining?
Well, things are encouraging now to get Aguero for Harry Kane as I planned pre-wild card. I'll just hope that Aguero will be subbed off in the next few minutes so I can pretty much look in my decision. This is the team now. As I said, I have some bench hit it with the defense, not potentially this game week, but I think game week after. So I'm starting 4 at the back, kind of back, we did the back again, no more numbers, 4-3-3. Miguel was already sort of planned to be benched against Man City and Liverpool. And maybe he would score, maybe he will come in with something, but I just fancy the other 11 to deliver more. Currently, the captaincy is on KDB as a bus team, but the real captain is not still in my team. So once Aguero is in, he will be very likely be my captain. KDB is vice then. I just don't feel that I'm going to captain Sterling this game week, whether it's about stats, whether it's about him starting or not. So I'll be prepared. I'll be preparing the first sub, which could be Cantwell, could be Miguel, one of those, to be first sub in case Sterling gets limited minutes he will be in, or he gets benched for the full game. So that's it for now. One free transfer, of course, and things is as planned for myself. I'm trying to get Jimenez game week 11 over for Wilson once he hopefully return against Watford. So
okay. So that's a nice what we're talking about really. Keeping to the template. You just wildcarded into the template, but you've got that the eye on who's going to be. So Jimenez possibly, and I think Aguero, De Bruyne, and Sterling is formidable. And as a non-owner, I really hate watching when he gets all those goals in midweek. And he, as we know. How many times have we had either amazing weeks or terrible weeks, depending on whether we own and captain Aguero? I don't think was it 16-point haul this season already. I don't see that. I don't see that ending.
And I'm still a bit worried, to be honest, without Liverpool attack. So game week 9 is over. No damage, but even my assets did not do anything. So it's about 3-4 more weeks without Salah or Mane. And that's the reasoning behind going to 3 City assets, because that's how I kind of cancel any potential points or holes from Liverpool. And but TA is still there, so I'm quite happy with that. Okay. And I think the wild card for me was necessary, although I wild card to the template, but the structure has changed. I had big at the back, Digne, Otamendi, and TA. I didn't have any premium striker that's now in. I have the flexibility to use premium strikers, or even go to Salah or Mane in 2 moves instead of Miguel or Cantwell, and downgrade Aguero afterwards. So I've got that flexibility, and so I think I'm in a good shape, I hope.
I can't argue. I think it's good. I think getting Aguero in, just as I said, that treble up there is. I fear it. Neil, will I fear your team? Let's put it up on the screen. Who are you captaining, and who's in, who's out?
I don't think anyone will be scared of my team, really. I think, I'm still a bit undecided. I've got 2 free transfers I rolled last week, so I've got a bit of room to play with. My bench needs a bit of sorting out apart from Lundstrom. So Saka's obviously not a long-term asset, I don't think, and obviously Hanley's going to be out for 2 months. Wood is making it very hard for me to sell him. I think, given that Chelsea's susceptible to set piece goals, I think I'm going to play him, to be honest, this weekend. And then he's got some decent fixtures beyond that. So, Pukki's the obvious one. Do I jump ship now when he's got Brighton, Watford, Everton coming up? I don't know. I'm still a bit undecided. A bit of injury news from tonight, actually, from tonight's Champions League game, which makes me maybe a bit more confident about keeping Otamendi, is that Rodri's gone off with a hamstring problem. So that obviously not only frees up a spot at
we have no
centre-back.
defenders now.
Yeah, well, as I say, it not only frees up a spot at centre-back, does that mean Fernandinho is going to be needed at defensive midfield as well? Now, of course, Gundogan can play there. He's played there many times before, back end of last season as well. So, yeah, that's... I'm definitely keeping Otamendi now.
Stones has come on for Rodri.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
But is it likely it would be Fernandinho Stones or...
Well, Fernandinho had been playing as a left-sided centre-half with Otamendi. Then Rodri played there on Saturday. So he was a left-sided centre-half. So if it's possible that he could play as he is now, Fernandinho left side, Stones right. The fact that Otamendi hasn't come off the bench is maybe a slight worry. I don't know if he's still not quite well enough to feature, but I might as well hold him now based on that. And also, this isn't related to my team, but Zinchenko apparently missed out tonight with a knee problem.
Okay.
Well, actually, it is related to my team because if Mendy plays, then that makes Sterling a better prospect, hopefully. But yeah, so I think the issues I need to address, Pukki, possibly Otamendi, and bits of bench fodder. I don't think a mass overhauls are needed. And I'm fairly content with that lot, as underperforming as they've been the past week or two.
Yeah, because you've got Lundstram there as your bet. I mean, Karam's going to field Lundstram. Lots of people would as well, because why not? I
feel I have to field him week in, week out now. He's putting a lot of pressure on me.
And I was saying earlier about Otamendi, so I put my team up because it's quite similar to me and Neil. We're only about 10 points between us. And in fact, Karam's only 6 points behind me, so we're very kind of bottlenecked in the overall rankings. But yeah, my team's quite similar in terms of having Otamendi there and having Lundstram there as a backup. I don't mind if Otamendi's benched, because I don't think he'll come on unless there's an injury to a centre back, whoever he's got there, and to come on. So I think Lundstram is fine. I've got Rico as well. I don't really want to bench Rico. It's Pukki in my team. I don't like the look of, and I've got 2 frees, and I'm looking at Pukki to Jimenez, and to fund that I only need to get 0.3 or 4, something like that. 0.3 I think it is. Cantwell downgraded there to whoever, because he'll be third sub anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Or possibly Otamendi to Bolly is a possibility if I need to. Josh King, I think he was rested for fatigue based on international commitments. I'm anticipating him coming back. Obviously, if he's benched again for Solanke and Fraser and other Bournemouth assets, then it's time to move on. But as I've said, one of the Brighton strikers could be an option there as well. So yeah, there's options, and I do like that Chris Wood chap. I think he could be very.
I don't have good memories with the Chris Wood.
No. I think it could be a very good option. But just before we go, as ever, I wanted to just flag up all the stats that we've been reeling off have come from the Scoutcast members area, especially things like looking at the season ticker has been quite influential for us, particularly picking out some of those teams like the Manchester United defence possibly, but certainly with Wolves and our ongoing love of Leicester bubbling away there under the scenes with the likes of Jamie Vardy and that Leicester defence. But for now, good luck everyone finding that template, locking it down, removing it, inventing your own one, whatever you want to do with it. But good luck with that template, good luck with the game week, and it's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye all.